Hello and welcome to Surveyor Says, the podcast from the National Society of Professional Surveyors. Each week, we bring you fascinating guests that are involved in the profession of surveying. We cover a lot of ground, including Table A Talk with Gary Kent, Point of Order with the NSPS Joint Government Affairs Team, Future Focus, highlighting current and future leaders of the profession, and everything survey-related in between. Thanks for joining us here on the podcast, and hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Surveyor Says. Hello and welcome to another episode of Surveyor Says. This is your host, Tim Burch. And, like I say, every week I say it's a special guest. Well, you know what? This one is really special because it's the evening time here in the United States where I'm at. It's the morning where she is at in, did you say Canberra, Australia. And, I told her before we got started recording that I've been stalking her a little bit on LinkedIn and watching all the great things that her organization is Consulting Surveyors National, right?
That's right.
And so this is Michelle Blicavs, right? Blicavs.
Yeah.
Okay. And she is the CEO of Consulting Surveyors National. So like NSPS in the United States, she is overseeing all of the surveyors and as an organization for Australia. So we thought, you know what, maybe it's about time that I quit stalking her and that we get her on the podcast and let's talk about surveying in Australia and how similar it is to the United States, how dissimilar it is, because I think there's a lot of similarities and we can learn from each other. So, Michelle, welcome to the podcast. We appreciate you taking time out from. So you said you're at a conference, and you took time out from your busy schedule to jump on here with me.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. We've just been at a conference with one of our partner organisations, SSI, here in Australia, that run a big conference called Locate. Here, and we've had there's been about 1,000 people at the conference in our capital, Australia's capital, following a federal election. So very, very interesting times for us here in Australia. So it's been a fabulous time, and I'm glad that we could fit this in.
Sure. Well, I'm glad. I appreciate it too, because like I said, it is an interesting time around the world for surveying, and I got to tell you, just in conversations with other like-minded associations around the world, it almost seems like there is a little bit of the tide turning, but we still face a lot of challenges. So I guess tell us a little bit about Consulting Surveyors National and how you came to be the CEO of this organization.
Yeah, so the Association of Consulting Surveyors has existed for about 50 years. It came about in the late 60s because there was a real move for professional surveyors were going out and starting up their own practices. So they'd sort of been in, a lot of government surveyors, but more and more were going out on their own as government over time started to consult back to private industry. And so as surveyors started to start up their own companies, there was a concern about professionalism and business practices and some of those things. And so that's how Consulting Surveyors, the association, was born here in Australia. So I oversee the New South Wales division and also the national office, because half of our surveyors in Australia are based in New South Wales. Little bit less than half, but pretty much close to half.
Wow.
We're a much smaller country, you understand. There's only 25 million of us across a very big continent, and about 2,500 registered or licensed surveyors in the country, about 12,500 surveyors generally speaking. And 1,000 of those registered surveyors are in New South Wales, and then the rest are smattered around the rest of the country. So my job is to look after the business side of what they do. So we have equivalents of NSPS, which in our country is SSI, which is the Surveying and Spatial Science Institute. here, and they look after the individual surveyors and we look after the businesses in surveying. And so we represent the whole of the business. So not just the surveyors, but perhaps the engineers, the town planners. We have a lot of planners in our field.
Okay.
As well as the technicians. So not just about those who are licensed, but the technicians as well. The admin staff, we've got a practice managers workshop coming up shortly, all those sorts of things. And so we run a lot of business training. We have a business academy, and we do, I've got this afternoon, we're running a masterclass on managing cash flow. And so we do all sorts of those sorts of things. So we concentrate more on that side of it, rather than teaching them how to do surveying or how to become better surveyors. So
Sure.
And I've been with the association now nearly 5 years. I am an association executive. I'm a certified association executive, actually, with ASAE in the States, one of about 30 here in Australia that has that qualification. I was the first, actually, to get that qualification here in Australia. Thank you. Yes,
nice.
I was very honored to be the first one to go through. So we have a great relationship with ASAE. And so, I bring my expertise from the association sector and what it means to provide support and to grow membership, and to run the events and to make sure that they're of a standard so that surveyors can concentrate on surveying and building their businesses. And I can worry about the membership and worry about the advocacy and make sure that their needs are being met from an association perspective.
Very nice. No, I like that. And like I said, it's these types of conversations we can have to where we can learn from each other, because NSPS basically is really member driven, member representation. I mean, it does some small parts that are business side of things. But I like that. I like the fact that that's what you're looking out after, is the business side of things, and really to help educate the surveying community on on the business side of all of these things. Because, that was something I learned early in my career with some of our older generation, was surveyors are historically bad businessmen. We just do what we do, and that's just the way it is. But
I mean, we do a national hourly rate survey and national salary surveys, and we've been doing them for quite some years. And there's not a huge change, right? I know that pricing is an issue for you, as it is for us, as it is everywhere. And part of the reason I think that's the case is that surveyors go to school and they learn how to be surveyors. And then they're expected to run a business. Nobody's ever taught them how to run a business. And so we, as part of our, there's no point just doing this research and getting these results unless we're actually going to do something about it. And so about 3 years ago, we decided that, we really need to teach these surveyors, and particularly the younger ones that do go out on their own, that think, I can do it. And, people don't leave a company, they leave a bad boss, potentially. That's sort of the saying, isn't it? And so they think they can do it better and they go out. But unfortunately, they've learned everything they know about the business side of surveying from the person who trained them to be a surveyor. And so what we need to do is show them what is best practice in the world of business right now. I don't necessarily think they need to go and do, some great master's course or a management degree or anything like that. I think they know enough. What we need to do is help streamline that a little bit, and take them through, what is some new thinking, what is some current thinking about dealing with people. How do you attract staff? How do you retain staff? How do you train them? How do you keep them? How do you help them progress in their careers? A lot of that is what we teach. The managing the finances is really important. Understanding strategy, understanding marketing. I mean, surveyors love marketing, don't they? Not really.
For the most,
they don't need to market, do they? Because they've got people coming through the door all the time. There's never a shortage of work.
Oh,
so
exactly.
Do marketing.
Right. Well, and that's just it. I mean, that's the old adage, is the best time to do your marketing is when you're the busiest. I mean, that's when you really need to make sure that it keeps coming through the door. So yes.
Well, and also you need to be able to pick and choose. One of the great things about surveyors is that surveyors can do anything. You've got a land problem, we can solve it for you, whatever that land problem might be. So what happens is we spread ourselves too thin And we do everything that you need. We can come in and do it. We can do a boundary survey. We can do an engineering thing. We can do a set out. We can do apartments. We can do bridges. We can do tunnels. You name it. We can do railways. We can do everything. But should we? I don't think we should be doing everything. And I think as a business owner, we need to think and we need to pick and choose what we actually want to do, what we like doing, what makes us the money, what we can attract a team for. And we need to specialize a little more than we do.
Yeah. And what you feel like you're best at, where your strengths lie. That, yes, you're right, that you have this ability to do all of these things. Well, maybe, but maybe you're best at, like you said, construction, staking, or what have you. Don't try to be everything to everybody. And
that's right, because if you've got 5 or 10 surveying firms in one town or one city, what differentiates you from the others? Because they can all do exactly all the things you can do. So the only thing, if you can't differentiate your product or your service, then the only thing you can compete on is price. And that's why we have price wars in surveying, and that's why our prices have not changed. And in a booming infrastructure age, which we're seeing here in Australia particularly, there's no better time than now to specialize and to set yourselves apart from everybody else. So
if I'm hearing you right, there's actually a price problem in Australia as well, like there is in America, where I won't say we give our work away, but we just don't value it the way we should, especially in this economy. So that situation's going on even there as well.
Absolutely. We make, there's a couple of sort of analogies and a couple of arguments about that. You know, when you have an issue medically or in the health sphere, here in Australia, you go and see your local doctor and he gives you a referral to a specialist, and you ring up and you make an appointment for 2 or 3 months down the track. You go and see that specialist for about 10 minutes and you get a bill for $600, and you pay it and you leave. And you say, thank you very much, and you make another appointment for another 3 months' time. Yet in surveying, we have the expectation that I can ring you, Surveyor A, today and say, hey, can you come on the job site? I need you in 10 minutes. And all of a sudden we're jumping through hoops to get to a site. Why do we do that? And then we charge pittance. We charge not nearly enough, because you're right, Tim, we don't value ourselves. And, you know, we say here, and one of our big sayings is, no building project can start without a surveyor. You can't start it, you can't finish it without a surveyor. So if surveyors decided to go on strike en masse around the world, the whole economy would completely shut down.
You know what? I've had flashes of that thought over the years, but for you to actually hear you actually say it is just that you're so right, that it starts with us. We work through the middle of it, and then it usually ends with us on the final surveys and such. So, you know, like I said, it's one reason I wanted to have this conversation, because we're not alone in, you know, we're not totally unique here in the United States with some of these issues and some of these good problems to have. Because like you said, the economy is booming. Our profession is so much in demand right now. Why aren't we taking better advantage of it? And it's not about price gouging. It's not about, I mean, when I say taking advantage of it, I mean, being able to charge our value, charge our worth. Is really what it comes back to.
It starts with us. We have to value us. We have to, you know, honor and respect and acknowledge, you know, the years of training that you put on, not just at university and then through the licensing process, and then the ongoing skill and capability that you've built up. And, you know, here in Australia, a licensed or registered surveyor is the only person in the country that can sign a plan. So those 2,500 people that I mentioned, they are the only ones that can sign. So we can create hundreds and thousands of lots of land every day here. But if you don't have a registered or licensed surveyor to sign that plan, you've got nothing. Right. So we need to value that ourselves, so that we can educate our clients. And the reason that our clients pit us against one another and say, can't you discount that, and can't you chop a bit off that price, and can't you, reduce it here, there, and everywhere, is because we've let them do that to us for years and years and years and years. And what we're saying here and now, and we've been at this process now for at least 2 or 3 years, is to say no more. No, I can't discount. No discounts will be entered into. We've just run a project management course. And one of our columns was, here's the price, and then here's, if you want to discount it, here's what the outcome is. I'm like, remove that column. There is no discounting in surveying.
No.
If you want to discount, what corner do you not want me to peg? Is there
right?
I can't discount. You can't compromise on this kind of work. Maybe you can compromise on the sort of glass you can put in the windows, and maybe you can compromise on some of the material that you can use when you're building the house, but you can't compromise on the boundary.
No, you're right. I love it. That's, to hear that from the other side of the world, but we're doing the same thing and it's the same situation. Yeah. Yes. I thank you for reinforcing this whole issue of, we need to be charging what we're worth, because there is so much value in that. So that's that. I love that. I truly do. I want to talk about the licensed surveyor for a second, though, because, like we talked about a little bit before with our 50 states, and we've got different licensing requirements, different education requirements, all these different things. What does it take to become a licensed land surveyor in Australia?
So yes, like you, it's different in every state and every territory. We have different jurisdictions, but basically they're sort of more or less the same in that you need a 4-year degree. Most of them offer a 5-year degree now. It's a dual civil engineering and surveying degree. So the first year is civil, and then you break off into your surveying. That's generally the case in most of the universities here now. And so they go to college equivalent here for those 4 years. Most will work during that time. Then they need to work for generally speaking, about 2 years experience in the field. And then they can apply to be a candidate or go through the licensing program. And then they sit between 5 and 6 exams with the Board of Surveyors, which are usually project-based, and they have to develop, ones. In New South Wales, it's they do a town planning and engineering and design strata, which is so strata, and then they do an urban cadastral and a rural cadastral. So they're the 5 exams that they go through here. It can take about 2.5 years. Some states, it takes about 4 years to go through the process. And I spoke to somebody last week who's been in the process for 8 years. Some have been in it for 10, depending on their workload, their commitment levels. And of course, often by the time they get to the stage of thinking, I want to go ahead and do the licensing process, they're married, they've got 2 young kids, et cetera, et cetera. So it does tend to take a little bit of time. So we are struggling around the country to get people through that licensing process, and we're having ongoing lengthy conversations about how we speed that up. Some states have made some changes in recent times to get more people through that process because we are, since COVID, or pre-COVID, of course, absolutely flat out here in Australia. There's been so much investment in infrastructure and growth, and we've got lots of empty land here. You might have seen a picture. Yes. And so what we're doing is urban sprawl is happening, and we're building more and more houses. More and more land lots need to be cut up. And our guys are absolutely flat out everywhere around the country, and they just need. Every day I get calls saying, "I need a registered surveyor. Do you know where there is one?" And there just aren't any. So.
Right. Well, and I guess, hearing that, and as I tell people, I'm a 2nd-generation surveyor. So my father, in the things that he did, and I won't say it wasn't hard back then. But it was a lot more basic. And we're getting into more technology. We're getting into more specialization, and really where it comes into a lot more education. But yet here in the United States, only about a half of our 50 require any kind of education. You can get your license by experience. But yet the ones that do have a 4-year degree and then experience after that. So much of the argument is that, well, all of that time it takes, well, why don't I just become a doctor, a lawyer, even an engineer to spend all that time? I guess I'm curious to hear from your perspective. What, why should a person spend that much time and invest that much time and experience in becoming a surveyor? I mean, from your perspective.
Yeah, so we go into this month about 60 schools where we're sharing with kids all over about why they should think about becoming a surveyor. Small plug, visit surveyingcareers.com.au to see a little bit more about what we do. But we say to the kids, if you're looking for an exciting career where you can be involved in property and construction projects around the country, whether that is building bridges, roads, tunnels, railways, creating new housing communities, the opportunities are huge. Build the tallest buildings in the world, be a part of that. There are some really exciting opportunities in surveying, and that's what we're selling. We're selling, surveyors at their core are problem solvers. They're not laying bricks, which no offense to the bricklayers out there. Shout out to all of you. We appreciate the bricks on our walls, but we want to make sure those bricks are in the right place and that our houses are worth what they should be worth. And that's where surveyors come in. And so from a problem solving perspective, from a variety of work, if you want to work with some really cool gadgets, right? I mean, laser scanners, drones, it's endless, GPS, LiDAR, all that great stuff, then surveying's the career of choice, isn't it? What else would you do? I don't understand.
Oh, exactly. And I'm glad to hear that you're making this big push, especially at the high school level. I mean, that's really where we have to get their attention. I guess going back not so much into the licensing part of it, but the current employment. What is the for a survey technician, for somebody that's not in a licensing career path?
Yeah.
What are the opportunities for someone, basically a field person or a CAD technician? Yeah. What's their career path? What possibilities?
I say to people all the time, whether they're straight out of high school or they're thinking about a change of career, it's never too late to choose a career in surveying. You don't need to go and do a 4-year degree if you don't want to. You can we can teach you how to pick up a jigger and to get going and to, be in the field. We offer a certificate for and a certificate for in surveying and spatial information, and then a diploma in surveying. And actually, we've got a bit of a challenge here in our training sphere, so much so that our association has developed what we're calling the Surveyors Academy, and we will actually be teaching that directly. So that's from industry for the benefit of the profession. And we will be teaching people directly. Some of your listeners will have heard of Peter Cox. She runs a great podcast called Defining Boundaries, which is very well named. I don't know who gave her that name, but it was a really good name for a podcast. And so Peter works for me. She's our national training manager, and we are developing this training course, and it is designed to actually run in-house. So one day a week you do your training, and you can do it online or you can come to our office. So you can do it anywhere in the country online, and then the rest of your training actually happens on the job, the way it was always designed to be. And you upload your assessment pieces and so on to us. It's assessed. And at the end of that year, you've got your certificate or your diploma, and you can go on and do further training. And we're working with our university sector to get recognition for that training into the university degree. But look, we understand, we have something here. Well, no, we don't anymore. But once upon a time, there was this thing called the Cadastral Club. Do you have a cadastral club there, where it's all about cadastral surveyors, and it's all about being licensed and registered, and that's the epitome of the profession. And and look, we absolutely need that, and we're not saying that we don't need that. We absolutely do need that. It's like we have barristers here that are the high end of the lawyers, or the specialty doctors and so on, and we absolutely need that. But one registered or licensed surveyor creates 6 other jobs in a field, in an admin, in a
Yes.
design, in CAD, drafting, all those things. So we need the registered and licensed, but they need 6 support people under them.
Absolutely.
And so when we talk to our government here, we talk about surveyors as being job creators, because you create a surveying firm and we talk about them as one-man bands, but they're not really. They have to have somebody who's helping them with the drafting, doing their admin, and some of those other bits and pieces. So I know that there's robotics now and you can just go out with a, thing on your back and off you go and do it all. But it's very, very hard to do it solo. Most people will operate with at least 2, 3 at a minimum, I think, and 6 is ideal. So, I think that we need to make sure that we are training our technicians, that we are bringing them up, that we're keeping them up to date with what's happening with technology, and that we are including them in and recognising the value that they contribute to the whole of the firm and the whole of the practice.
Absolutely. I mean, because it does take a whole bunch of help to get all of that done. That, there are those, like you said, one-man bands that can do some of this, they'll go out and do the field survey, they'll do the drafting, whatever. But for the bulk of it, I think we're going to see more and more, especially the multidiscipline firms. They're just going to keep growing and growing. That you're right. It's going to have one licensed person with a whole tribe underneath them, basically, of, this team that they're going to work with. But we've got to continue to keep building those technicians. I mean, that's where, like I said, a lot of the work gets done. You're right. I'm glad to hear that. And yes, Pete has become a good.
Yeah, we've got technicians running companies, hiring registered and licensed people. So this idea that the registered or the licensed surveyor is the one who should be the business owner. There's a reason surveyors get into surveying, because they like surveying. They like being out in the field. And I see many frustrated surveyors who are stuck behind a desk and stuck behind their computers, and they miss being out in the field. Who's to say that they shouldn't be out in the field, and that actually the technician who has the business sense, and maybe they need to hire somebody with business sense to run the business side, rather than them thinking that they have to do it all. I think that's a culture that we've built up over hundreds of years in surveying. And I think that there's no better time than now to think about, well, let's challenge that thinking. Is that really the best way to be running our businesses? You became a surveyor, be a surveyor, be an excellent surveyor and get paid really well to do it, and charge yourself out at some astronomical fee because you're valuable and you deserve it. Be a true consultant, and get that fee that you deserve, but have somebody else run the business. And maybe that's a techie that's in your firm.
Exactly. Well, I like that. I like that a lot, because you're right. It's been just by default, the licensed surveyor, the licensed engineer, they're the ones that end up running the teams, running the companies. And that's a lot of times, maybe that's not what they're good at. They're good at surveying. They're good at their profession, but not necessarily the business person, what have you. And if they want
to run the business, then let's train them and help them run the business. That's my job at the association, is to help them do what they do better, and help them at least understand they have a choice in that, and that they can choose that part. And that's one of the big pieces of work that we do here.
Very good. Okay. Well, I'm just going to jump in with this next one with both feet, because it's a touchy issue here in the United States. And I can't imagine with your culture down there, it's much different, but the whole diversity, equality, inclusion, how do we get more diverse in our profession? I mean, how do we draw more women in? Here it's about, other obviously, Blacks, Hispanics, and others into the profession. I'm assuming down there it's the indigenous people, the Aborigines and such. That, I mean,
well, and multicultural. We're a very multicultural country. We've grown through immigration, not dissimilar to the States, and yet we have a very white male profession.
Right.
And so we are working on changing that. We are actively changing that. We have 3% women who are registered and licensed surveyors. But it's growing. Like, I really feel like we're seeing 2 or 3 or 4 get registered every year, which is really great, out of the 30, that might be. So again, we're trying to lift that stat, and we are getting there. I think we have here in Australia developed a surveying, spatial and space diversity and inclusion network, where we all get together to see what we can do. We've done some research into that to understand what the challenges are around that diversity issue. Actually, the willingness is not the problem. Most firms that I speak to, most business owners, most surveyors would happily have a woman.
Right.
It's not as hard anymore. You're not dragging chains through the bush anymore, are
Exactly.
you? So, there's the technology and there's the there's the data analytics that's so much a part of what we do with point cloud information and all of those things. So there's a whole lot more in that space. And I think there's more that work in the spatial area, in GIS and so on, than do in surveying. But I think, so what we've got to do is we've got to help make it look a bit easier, which I think we can do. There's the challenge of like attracts like. There's the challenge of bias in interviewing. But really the biggest challenge, I think, is an inclusion. So because we're a group of men, generally speaking, we go to the pub. Do you call them pubs? You probably don't call them pubs. Anyway, we go to pubs here in Australia at 5 p.m, and we all have a beer together. Well, generally speaking, and I am generalising because some women quite like going to the pub for a beer at 5, but not all. We might prefer to go out for morning tea, say, or have a lunch together, or something different. And then when we have our conferences over here, we do a golf day. Do you have golf days?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
And look, some women are really into golf, so I am generalizing here, but generally speaking, golf days is not really, that's not really the thing that we're going to get keen for. But we women have understood that if we don't go and play golf on the field with the corporates and with the blokes,
Right.
we're never going to rise in our careers. So what other things can we think of doing besides golf days and going to the pub? So that's sort of a bit of a message that's coming across here in Australia right now, that's that inclusion piece. And it's about throwing around ideas about what we can do as a team, beyond the usual, well, here, let's play footy, or let's play cricket, or let's play golf. What else could we do? What are the other options? And, it would depend on the girls in your team as to what that might look like. And generally speaking, the women who get into surveying love the outdoor stuff, and they are sporty, and they don't mind the sporty stuff. So I am generalizing, but what I'm talking about is we need to change our thinking, and we need to open our minds to thinking more inclusively about how we can approach this. And the other challenge is that we've got to, when it comes to bringing in new people into the profession, it's the parents that's actually the problem. So on our new website, surveyingcareers.com.au, we've actually got a page for parents, because I've stood at careers expos and I've watched parents with their children walk past surveying, and the kid might look at it and be somewhat interested, but the others are not, and the parents are not. So we need to try and educate and share the message a little more broadly. And we're about to embark on a major PR campaign here in Australia to promote surveying and to help people understand its relevance and its importance, and hopefully think about, well, maybe that would be a good career path.
Exactly. Because you're right. The parents do have such an influence over where their kids are going to, what they're going to do, that if they do steer them, I gotta, well, my daughter, she did her own thing. I mean, that's, but if we tried to steer her away from something, I think it would be much easier to steer her away from something than to steer her towards something. So to push them away past surveying and not even look at it, it would be very easy to do that. And push
and I'll
forward.
just pick up on something you just said, that your daughter's chosen a different path, which is absolutely fine. I think that happens all the time. But you mentioned you're a second generation surveyor. I'm seeing more and more and more second generation surveyors that are going to lose the third generation. And more are not, their children are not choosing the career path that they did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's because surveyors are working too hard for too little money. And as a result, their kids are going, I don't want to do what you're doing, Dad. Are you kidding? I see how hard you work. I'm just not, I want a life. I want a life.
Exactly.
And they don't see Dad has a life. And so for those of you who are listening that have younger children, make surveying fun for your kids. Choose to go home and spend time with them. And I get it. When you go on holidays, you've got to find survey marks and you've got to look at whatever. Okay, take the kids surveying with you, but make it fun.
But make it fun.
Because otherwise they're not going to choose to follow in your footsteps.
Wow. Now, see, I knew this was going to be a special guest. I knew this was going to be a great conversation because you know what, you hit on a lot of things that that need to be said. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of times for, even for myself, being a middle-aged white man, it's hard, I'm preaching to the choir on some of these things, but hearing it from you from a different perspective, from a different country, but yet we're doing the same thing. It really strikes home with, so many truths there that, we really can make a difference. We just have to be that change. We have to be the ones willing to be able to put this together.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, for my role as the association, it's my job to support my members and to help them do this, because what we're talking about is changing the culture of surveying, and that's hard. And we recognize that it's hard. And what we want to do is put events together and training packages and opportunities to come together and discuss this and provide that support. I have a hotline to even during this call, I've missed 2 calls from surveyors, Tim, during this call. And so, my surveyors have a hotline to me that if they need some help and they need support in this, that's what we're here for. That's what our association does. And, I think that's the opportunities for NSPS and others, your various groups that you have around the country to provide that level of support. And I think you can staff it accordingly. And we've had to grow our staff significantly because of the growth in our association, because we are really trying to make a difference. So it's been great for us, and certainly encourage that for you, and look forward to catching up when I'm over there for sure.
Oh yeah, that's just it. And that was the other part I was going to ask, that during your visits, Michelle's going to be over in the States several times. Lucky her. The next several months. That, you know what, we ought to just sit down and continue this conversation. If you would be up for it, we should just talk about a little bit more comparisons and what we can learn from each other.
Absolutely. And I think we need to do more of this, cross-border sharing now that our borders are open again and we can all travel again. I think, we've got some great relationships internationally, and we'd like to continue to expand those. And you're welcome. Any surveyors from the States, if you're coming to Australia for a holiday, and I highly encourage it because our weather is awesome. We've got fabulous beaches, some great bush to walk through. You'll all love it. You can go to the desert if you really want to. Mm-hmm. Then please do look me up when you pop over to Australia. We'd love to host you.
I would like to walk across that bridge.
You can climb it. It's pretty cool.
Yep. I would like to climb. Yeah, I'd like to climb that bridge.
Climb the bridge. That's right.
Climb the bridge.
It's a pretty cool thing.
Sydney has always been on my bucket list for literally decades. So
you would be welcome.
FIG is going to be in Brisbane in 2025.
2024. Yes, that's right. 25. Yes.
25. Yes. But trying to get there before then. But I wanted to give a little shout out to PETA, because yes, we've become friends over the past couple of years. We've been on each other's podcasts, and really like what she's doing there. And then to it, I want to make sure that if you can put in a good word, there's a couple people I would like to get connected with. I mean, really connected with. There's a gentleman by the name of Craig Sandy.
Yes, I just had breakfast with him before the podcast.
I would like to meet up with him. I really like a lot of the stuff he's doing, and I would like to
He's
have
fabulous.
him on the podcast.
He's our Surveyor General in Victoria. So we have Surveyors General in every state that chair our boards of survey. Well, they don't all chair the boards, but they're all, involved with the boards of surveyors here. So yes, I'm going to meet with all of them a bit later.
And then what's the gentleman's name? The red hat guy.
Greg Goodman.
That's
Greg Goodman. He's based south of Sydney. The Red Hat Rambler, Greg Goodman. He runs a great firm called Land Team Australia on the south coast of New South Wales and up in the Highlands. One of my fabulous member firms. So yes, absolutely. I'm sure he would love to meet you. So when you come to Australia, we'll do a Sydney, Victoria trip, and we'll make sure you meet all the important people.
Well, that would be fantastic. I would love to do that.
You need to also meet Narelle Underwood, who has just had a significant promotion to be the Executive Director of Spatial Services. So she's one of our Surveyors General who is now leading a significant spatial service agency in New South Wales. So
Nell is on my bucket list to I was supposed to meet her in Amsterdam a couple of years ago before COVID, and I was really looking forward to meeting her. So yes, she's actually on the top of that bucket list.
I believe that's right. Well, FIG is the place to be, isn't it? That's where you'll all be.
Well,
I can't go to FIG this year because I'm doing my 3 trips to the States. So
yeah, well, so we'll catch up with her as well. And I guess, and that's one thing I wanted to just leave you with, is that I think it's fantastic. Yeah, with Nell's new appointment, with what PETA is doing with you and what you're doing with your association there. That really to me, that goes to show what is possible within this profession and what we can do. Anyone can do that, especially women, what this profession can open them up to, and the opportunities. I just it's something that we've got to be able to promote that much more, because you ladies are just killing it over there. You really are.
Well, we're trying, and it's a plus for diversity. I don't know how many of your NSPS groups around the states each have women on their boards, but if they don't, you need to get some, because the women are amazing and they open things up, and they really do, because we think differently, on the good side, I promise. And we tend to be very action oriented and get things done. And so when you can pull a group of amazing women together who can do that, and we've had some of that here at this conference that I've been at, have been recognised. Kelly Dean was named Professional Surveyor of the Year here just the other night. She's an amazing, amazing surveyor based in Victoria. So again, there are a few amazing women who are doing some really unique things in our country, and we'd love to share that with the rest of the world. We'd love to hear from yours as well. I have heard of some. I met one at a conference actually who does some great photogrammetry over there. I can't remember what state she was from, but she's on my list of people to look up.
Well, good. Well, 2 of our last 3 presidents, including our current NSPS president, is a woman, Amanda Allred from Washington, is our current president, and then 2 presidents ago was actually Lisa Van Horn from Green Bay, which you're going to be close to.
Oh, I have to visit her.
So
well, that's good, because you're doing better than us. We haven't had a female president at our national body yet, so you're doing better than us.
Well, I think with what you've got going on, you've got a great start, and it's only a matter of time. So, yeah. Hey, listen, I know you're busy. Thank you for the time, and I appreciate you really sharing really a breath of fresh air and a lot of great knowledge that, I think it's hearing the same things from a different perspective, and it's different. It's a little bit fresher, and we appreciate you sharing that with us, because like like we've said all along, we're doing the same things. We're fighting some of the same battles, but we can solve the same problems. So very good. Great. Well, that'll wrap us up for this week. Like I said, once again, thanks to Michelle for taking time out of her conference schedule to sit down with us. And we'll have we got a couple of great more guests coming up in the next few weeks, including geodesy and some photogrammetry and some other things from some industry specialists. So stay tuned, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you. You've been listening to the Surveyor Says podcast, brought to you by the National Society of Professional Surveyors. If you have any questions about today's episode or any other topic, please email us at info@nsps.us.com, and we are here to help. Visit our website, nsps.us.com, to learn more about our association, the programs we administer and support, our sustaining members, and information about future episodes of Surveyor Says. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify, as well as our podcast host, Podbean. And remember, it's a great day to be a surveyor.